All right, listen, guys. Do not put assets under a business that sells goods or services. Do not put assets under the name of a business that sells goods or services, because a business that transacts with customers that sells goods or services can be sued. And if that business is sued and happens to lose the lawsuit, the assets of that business can be touched. It can be taken away in the event that they lost a lawsuit. Okay, so what you should do is create a holding company and transfer the assets of your business that sells goods or services to the holding company. So those assets are now held and owned by the holding company. So for this context, a holding company is a company that doesn't sell any goods or service, but it just exists to hold assets, to hold investments, or it owns controlling interest in other companies. So create a holding company and transfer all your assets, the assets of your business or your company that sells goods or service, to the holding company. Now, the holding company does not sell any goods or service. Okay, so the assets are owned by the holding company, and then lease those assets to your company that sells goods and services. So now those assets are not owned by your company that sells goods or services. They are owned by the holding company. So they are more or less borrowed. Okay, so in the event of a lawsuit and you lose the lawsuit, your company loses the lawsuit and it's asked to pay, to pay money, to pay for damages or whatever, the assets of that business are protected. They cannot be touched. They cannot be taken away. So I'll give you guys a practical example. Let's say I wanted to start a restaurant chain. Okay, I'll call the restaurant chain, let's say, Orwell's Tasty Restaurant. Okay, so I have assets, I have warehouses, I have real estate, I have vehicles, I have, delivery vans, I have patents for my recipes, I have trademarks. All those are assets. I have equipment. All those are assets. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a holding company. Let's say I'm going to call the holding company Orwell and Family Holdings. Okay, so that's the holding company, and I'm going to transfer those assets to the holding company. Now those assets are owned by the holding company and not by my restaurant chain, Orwell's Tasty Restaurant. And then I'm going to lease those assets from the holding company to my restaurant chain. So Orwell's Family Holdings is going to lease those assets that it owns to Orwell's Tasty Restaurant. So now those assets are not owned by Orwell's Tasty Restaurant. They are leased to Orwell's Tasty Restaurant. And let's say Mr. John comes to our restaurant and unfortunately he had a bad stomach and got ill and decided to sue Orwell's Tasty Restaurant. And eventually he won the lawsuit, and the court ordered Orwell's Tasty Restaurant to pay him $100,000 or $500,000 or $1 million. So what is going to happen? Mr. John and his lawyers, they cannot touch our assets. Our assets are protected because those assets, when they come and look into the business finances, they're only going to see debt because those assets belong to another company. It doesn't belong to us. Legally, they can only take what belongs to Orwell's Tasty Restaurant. So if you have a business or you have a company that has enormous assets, and the life of your business really depends on your assets. If those assets are taken away, your business dies, right? So you have to protect those assets using the corporate veil. Okay, so create a holding company, transfer all your assets to the holding company, which doesn't do any goods or service. So it's very limited avenue for that holding company to be sued because it doesn't transact with customers. It doesn't sell any goods. It doesn't sell any service, right? So they are safe for the holding company. So transfer all those assets to the holding company and then lease those assets to your company, which actually sells goods and sells services. So in the event of a lawsuit, those assets are protected, right? You don't lose those assets. My name is Orwell, and if you want to get daily doses of business clarity, follow, subscribe, whatever you have to do, and I'll see you next time.